Hello and welcome to London. I'm in Trafalgar Square, just outside the National Gallery, which has been here since 1831. It started when members of the public donated their works of art, and since then it's grown into one of the world's most prestigious art collections. And they have a new exhibition opening here. It's called Radical Light. And when an exhibition opens, it's like the opening night of a stage play or a musical on the Strand behind me here. It's exciting. And this one has been made possible by a partnership between the National Gallery and Credit Suisse. Well, earlier today, I spoke with Russell Chambers, the CEO for the UK and Ireland, and asked him just what Credit Suisse gets from partnerships like this.
We've been looking for some time to establish a major relationship with one of the prime artistic institutions in the United Kingdom. Obviously, the National Gallery is right uppermost in that group. We've been talking to a number of different people, but there was no better organisation that hadn't previously had a partnership at this level of this scale before with an institution like us. And so we've got a new opportunity to forge something new, something innovative, something creative, bringing to bear all that we've got to offer with this extraordinary institution, with its thousands of extraordinary paintings, and helping bring them to our community. And that means, across the board, charities, employees, clients, what have you.
The director of the National Gallery is Nicholas Penny, who explained the scale of the partnership with Credit Suisse. Can you give me, Nick, a sense of the scale of this sponsorship?
Well, it's more than sponsorship of this particular exhibition. It's a partnership, something completely new for the National Gallery, and to start with, for 3 years. And it's a big thing, big commitment to the National Gallery, and not just to exhibitions, I should say.
Can you tell me what the partnership then enables you to do that you couldn't do before?
Well, one thing it enables me to do is not to worry so much. I mean, that's a really big thing, because I know that I have this major supporter. The Credit Suisse is very interested in our educational programme and in developing that. It's a great programme, but there's lots more that we can do with their help. Also, the late night openings, which is a relatively recent development, it's a terribly important development in London. It means that people who are working in the city by day can actually come to the galleries on one evening of the week. And this is something which Credit Suisse is also doing for us. Those are two big things on top of the exhibitions that they're supporting.
Nick, thank you. It's taken 4 years to put this exhibition together. So why is it called Radical Light? I asked the exhibition's curator, Christopher Riopel. I'm wondering why the exhibition is called Radical Light.
It's called Radical Light because at the end of the 19th century, a group of Italian artists wanted to find a way to bring luminosity into their paintings, to make them glow. And they discovered that they could do this by using divided color, that is, pure touches of red or green, rather than mixing them, putting them on the canvas side by side. And the optical effect from a distance for the viewer was that the pictures glowed.
Well, give me an example here on this painting behind us.
This is Segantini's Primavera, springtime in the Alps. And you see, particularly if you look at the grass, every blade is a single stroke of color, green, and then beside it will be a stroke of blue, a stroke of yellow, and altogether those colors fuse in the eye into the general color of an alpine meadow.
So this would have taken a very long time, because as you say, every blade of grass is done individually. So presumably each of these artists couldn't get through an awful lot of works in their lifetime, because each of these must have taken how long, for instance?
This was tremendously time-consuming work. Segantini would have worked on this for months and months. His production was therefore very small. But the finished product had this extraordinary presence. It was absolutely alluring to the eye in a very new way.
Well, let's move through here, and as we're doing so, perhaps you can tell me how a group of people, of like-minded people who do want to experiment with all this light, how they get together and form a movement. Does it just come naturally, organically almost, or do they form a club? How does it work?
In this case, it was a group of young artists in Milan who wanted Italian art to engage with modernism. They wanted it to be as modern as what was going on in Paris. And they heard what the Parisian artists were doing with points of color in their painting. And basically they said, we'll try this. We'll try to make light our great subject matter, and we'll do it by using pure color. Mm-hmm. And you see this here in this wonderful artist named Previati painting the chariot of the sun. The sun is the source of light. And so he's doing this incredibly intense picture with just touches of gold, touches of yellow, and then touches of orange that suggest something of the heat of the sun itself. It's a kind of allegory of the heat and brightness of the sun.
That is very striking indeed, isn't it? You can almost feel the temperature coming off it, can't you?
And you can also see how it's done entirely with little stripes of color lying side by side, so that the whole thing has a kind of pulsing quality as you look at it.
We can see it here. We've got what looks like the same... I'm guessing it's the same artist, yes?
No, this is a new artist named Angelo Morbelli.
No, sorry, I meant the two paintings were by the same artist. Yes.
Excuse me. Yes. Morbelli was very interested in using this new kind of painting with light to investigate the lot of poor people in Milan. And so he actually moved into the old people's home called the Pio Albergo Trivulzio, where old people were cared for by charity. And he showed the sadness, the loneliness of that experience that the people were having there, and these images of the few old-timers left on a holiday to their own devices.
And we can see the title of this one, Jour de fête à l'hospice de Trivulzio. So This is a feast day in a hospice.
Yes, and most of the people, who, if they still had families, have gone to join their families, but a few old-timers are left behind to their own devices. It's a very sad picture, but it was one of the things these artists wanted to do. They wanted to use this new kind of painting to investigate the reality of modern life.
Now, all these artists are grouped together in a collection known as the Divisionists. Why would they call that?
Divisionism is a technical term. It is the division of pure color. Rather than mixing the colors on your palette, you use pure red, pure green, pure yellow, and apply them directly to the canvas. And this dividing of color, this technical aspect of the work, is how the movement got its name. But it implies so much more about dealing with modern Italian life.
Well, we're talking about modern Italian life, but we haven't actually clarified the time frame here. All these artists would be painting when?
They began to work in the late 1880s. They came together as a formal group in 1891, and they went on until through the first decade of the 20th century to 1909, 1910, when a new movement called Futurism came along and carried on in a new direction.
And in fact, they anticipated that slightly. Maybe this is kind of the bridge between their movement and Futurism, because if we look at this room here, especially this magnificent painting here, this is pointing the way perhaps towards Futurism, yeah?
This is one of the great monuments of 20th century painting, Boccioni's The City Rises of 1910, where he now is taking divided color, pure color, and making an image of the modern city, of its dynamism, of its energy, of its constant movement, in the form of this great horse that the men are trying to control, but is essentially uncontrollable as it surges forward with the energy of the modern world. So with these artists, the Futurists as they'll come to be called, we're leaving behind the realism of divisionism and pushing ahead into a fully 20th century art form, all about energy and movement.
Absolutely fascinating. It's been brilliant. Well, this exhibition runs here at the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square in London, right the way through summer until September the 7th. And then at the end of September, it will be opening in Switzerland. I wish you the very best of luck with the exhibition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.